So, which one of you is next?
You found some way to stop death and survive.
To break the cycle, there are only two ways. By killing. If you take a life, you get the time that person had left. Or you have to die.
What? No.
Good luck.
Final Destination, Bloodlines, in theaters May 16th, rated R.
My name is Jason. I am the last manager of the last video store in the universe. Binge Movies from sunny, tropical Akron, Ohio. And I'm here to talk to you about Final Destination Bloodlines. The fifth and final spooktacular of 2024 came and it went. Paul and I from the countdown. Movie and TV reviews podcast, eventually just the Countdown podcast? Countdown Reviews podcast? Whatever. It is only partially a thing anymore, but when it comes back, it's very, very special. But I made a friend with an Australian boy. Some would call it a love affair. Some decade ago. And of 5 of those 10 years, we've spent together having spooktaculars. Orgiastic celebrations of horror, gore, and viscera, where we let our bloodiest perversions run wild on one another and on our audience. And for our 5th horror movie fuckfest, we chose Final Destination as our 5th and final. Our pun entirely intended Final Destination. Because if you're going to go out with a bang. And yes, I mean that sexually. Paul is now in semi-retirement. He's squirreled himself away like Luke Skywalker on some island, drinking from alien teat. And I'm still here in the video store, talking about Final Destination movies. Who has the better life? I'll let you be the judge. If you don't know who I am, that was a very strange way to begin this episode. But all the beginnings of these episodes are strange because I'm a strange person. And this is a show for strange people. This is Binge Movies. This is for the weirdos, folks. We're the weird video store that you didn't think existed, and you're pretty sure it wasn't there yesterday, but by God, is it there today? And I'm telling you, it's probably not going to be there tomorrow. We appear as we need to be in the lives of people who most need us. So if you have found us for the first time, that's because the fates have aligned and brought us together, and you need us in your life. You need the power of home video to set you free. When I'm not busy managing that video store that travels through space and time and parallel dimensions, I'm part of Videoland. I'm trapped in the home video space with an illustrious cadre of guests who provide live to tape commentary over some of the strangest and most beloved films on our shelves here at the video store. And I'm not busy doing that. I'm the co-host of a movie show called The Slashers. Has its own separate feed with that same semi-retired Australian because I couldn't just let him go. I don't know how to breathe without him, so I needed to hold on to him. And Megan Kearns, who's an actual film critic. So if you like horror movies, go check out The Slashers. We're going to make our triumphant return for season 2 later this summer. Okay. I'm not busy doing all of that. I'm busy going to the movie theater on your behalf to watch movies to determine whether or not they're worthy of your time. And I have great news if you're a Final Destination fan, because I'm going to cut to the chase. I think Final Destination Bloodlines, produced and storied by the guy who directed those most recent Spider-Man movies, John Watts, and partially co-directed, and maybe even co-written, but definitely co-directed, by the guy who directed Leprechaun Origins. That's the Hornswoggle one. If you said those guys are going to team up, and they're going to make maybe the 3rd, 2nd, 4th best Final Destination movie, I wouldn't have believed you, but I just sat through it. And this movie gets something right that all the other Final Destination movies and many, 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 many horror movies, especially long in the tooth franchises, don't get right. But before I get to that, I'm going to get to something else. I'm going to get to what doesn't work about this movie because it's very minor. We can get it out of the way. When the movie is trying to be a movie, it kind of sucks. The writing sucks. The acting is actually kind of okay. It's a mixed bag, but and some people are better than others. But it's trying to be a movie. It's sort of trying to set up the character. It just doesn't handle its tone very well. And once the movie is able to get past establishing itself and just get into its bag, which is, by the way, refreshingly more than just the kills, because sometimes in the Final Destination series, just like sometime in the Friday the 13th series, just like sometimes in the Halloween series, just like sometimes the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which I think this franchise is a spiritual successor of. I think it is a Freddy franchise without Freddy. Sometimes those movies only function because the set pieces are pretty good and everything else around it is crap. And you don't. This is a little refreshingly different. The set pieces are good. The set pieces are fine. There's just some really good tension building ones in this one. But they're not like the peak, I think, death sequences of the franchise, right? I think 2 is probably still the best when it comes to that, as far as ingenuity, creativity, and iconic status. I told my partner that I had seen this movie, and they were like, they're still making Final Destination movies? And I said, actually, they've just started making them after a long time of not making them. And they said, okay, well, they didn't torture enough previous generations? Not a horror fan, this one. And I said, and then I sent the GIF of the logging thing, which we cover in our Final Destination Spectacular. And before I could even like get the GIF to send, they had already responded by saying, I still can't drive behind like trucks with like trees on them and logs or whatever. And that's exactly what Paul and I talked about. So I think that movie has created a visceral terror in the minds and hearts of at least all millennials. I think we're fucked up forever because of that movie, which is really funny. And that just proves the iconic status of the film. There's nothing really quite like that in this one. But here's how I know how the movie works. Even though, and there are good kills, but even though there's no like great iconic sequence in this film, you just really don't give a shit because a lot of the other movie, once it gets running, is clever and fresh and charming enough that even though the kills are like A-, B+ sort of kills, maybe even B- kills, it doesn't really matter. And that means they almost actually made a good movie. And this is the strength of the film. So I'm already done with my criticisms. Here's the strength of the film. The strength of the film is once it's able to get into its gear, and it doesn't take super long, maybe after the first 20 minutes, let's say, you end up finding yourself liking every character in this movie. And this is so refreshing because horror movies make the same sin. They especially franchises, they commit the same sin. It's the Friday the 13th sin. We want you to like one or two characters. We want you to like the final girl and probably her boyfriend, right? Or potential boyfriend. And maybe one more sympathetic character so that like we finally kill them and then we kill the boyfriend, then we get to the final girl. Everybody else is an asshole. Everybody else is a nothing, a no-name, or a fucking Shelley, right? Everybody else is some kind of dumb fuck prankster who you just can't wait to be killed. There's exactly one of those characters in this movie, and that person's death is so satisfying that my theater spontaneously applauded, myself included. And then we never have to fucking deal with that person again. And the rest of the time, the movie does this really excellent job of just establishing this family, this extended family, hence the Bloodlines title. And we'll get into the premise here in a second with no spoilers. And you understand everybody's perspective, as flimsy and as one-dimensional as they may be, but nobody is an asshole. Everybody is likable. And it has this really interesting effect in the film, which is twofold. You enjoy spending time with these people when they're not being murdered. which makes the overall experience of the movie better. Plus, when they do die, when some of them do die, it gets to the point where it kind of starts to suck. You kind of go, damn, I like that one, or I liked her, or I liked him, or he was funny, or oh, shit. And what that does before they're dead is when you sense death is coming, there's that little heart stopper. You go, oh no. And that's fun. If it's just a bunch of assholes who I don't give a flying fuck about, and this is the problem with maybe the last 2 or 3 Final Destination movies, is you hate all of these characters. You want them to die. And that's only fun for a little while. And this does the exact opposite. Here's something else fresh about this movie. This is no great film, but it's pretty fucking fun. One of the other great things this movie does is there's the typical setup. Person gets a premonition of death, progressively elaborate as the series goes on, crazy fucking death sequence, mass casualty event, and they are able to stave it off through the power of their premonition, which Paul and I have obviously pointed out as a fucking plot hole, because if death has a design, who then is giving you the premonition, right? Is it just an involuntary glitch in the Matrix? Was it God? Like, we never explore that. And we don't explore it in this one either. But this movie does something really smart, which is it deals with somebody's premonition, but in the past. And the way it connects to the present is kind of a cheap horror movie cliche, but that's all right, because it's going to speed run its way through all the cheap horror movie cliches to get to the fun stuff after about 15, 20 minutes. And then we never really have to deal with those fucking cliches again. And what the effect that then has is that we don't have to sit through like we do with all the sequels. Somebody's going to have the premonition. We watch everybody die in a CGI sludge fest. And then the whole thing repeats itself over again, which is what ends up being tiresome about the series. Nope. We short circuit that whole fucking thing. We only see the deaths. We never see the back end of the person preventing the deaths. You know, or I shouldn't say we never do. It's split up. So the repetition is gone. I mean, and then it becomes like, well, then what did happen, right? And then it's not really a mystery, but at least it's something. And then when that gets revealed, then everything kind of plays out the way it's supposed to be. And so when you break that formula like that, it's not even really breaking, it's just changing it up. It allows this thing to be way more fresh than it has any right to be. And so the other thing that this movie does, which is just exceptionally well done, is this really isn't, I mean, it's effectively like a soft reboot, but it's not a legacy sequel. Not really. There's one minor element of it that could be kind of legacy sequel-esque, but not really. You know, it functions as another story in this universe, and it exists. It's not trying to claim that this is the first time this has ever happened. It's not trying to rewrite the entire franchise. I mean, there's a way that you could kind of interpret certain plot points as being kind of a revelation of the overarching Final Destination series, but you don't even have to accept it as that if you don't want to. You really don't. The movie functions on its own, but it's still in the continuity of the movies that we know and love and like in this franchise. It's a fresh spin, but feels of the same DNA. It's not just like a completely bizarre version of Final Destination. It's not really a retread. The characters are pretty likable. They're pretty fun. There's actually some really clever, funny kind of sequences, and it's one of the funnier movies that I've seen in a long time. Like this year, and I'm trying to make it like it kind of plays more like a comedy, but in a good way. It almost kind of reminds me of. It's not as meta, but it has the sort of frivolity that Jason Lives does. It's just, it understands what it is, and it's having a fun time with it, and it's mean enough where it needs to be, and it's funny enough where it needs to be, and it's likable enough where it needs to be. And once it can get past all of the generic genre cliche bullshit it has to do, the movie really, really, really works. And so I'm going to cut to the chase. I highly recommend you go see this movie. I recommend you see it with a raucous crowd who is prepared to laugh and squeal and scream and look away and be grossed out and maybe even be sad a little bit and clap and boo and go see this movie in movie theaters with horror fans. It's fun. It's a fun time at the movies. It's a great, fun B movie. And so because of that, I'm going to give it, I'm tempted to do 4 stars, but it's a very solid B movie. And so for that, I give it 3.5 stars on the good old Letterboxd scale. If you're not following us at Letterboxd, you should. Letterboxd Binge Movies. Blue Sky is where we're at on social media. Go follow us there. I like to get to, I don't know, I like to double our follower count. We had to start all of our social media over because of this thing called autocracy and fascism and techno-oligarchs and techno-feudalism, which is the hellscape we're going to be living in tomorrow. So go follow us over there if you're on that platform. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I don't ask enough for my needs to be met in bed or on Apple Podcast. I'm working on both. Same thing on Spotify. Leave us a 5-star review. Comment on the episode below. Say something positive if you have something positive, but you don't have to put something negative down there. I may very well answer you. People did on our John Milius episode. I'm trying to figure out how to answer your negativity, dear listener. I don't know how, but I did see your comment. I'm working on it. Okay, go this weekend. See Final Destination Bloodlines. It's a great film. Until next time, binge on.